85% of people claim that they want to help pay for their kids' education, but they don't really know what's the best way to do it. There's 529 plans, taxable brokerage accounts, UTMA accounts, etc. With so many options, it's really hard to choose which is the right one for you. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the various ways that you can save for your kids' college and really what I think are the best options. So let's start with the first one that most people know about, and that's a 529 plan. So 529 plans are really just accounts that are specific to college, and in some states you can even use on private school before college. The reason why I really like 529 plans, one is that in a lot of states there's actually a tax deduction. So in some states you might be able to put in $10,000 or $20,000 a year and you get a deduction. A lot of people don't really look at the math here and they think this deduction is really great, but it's not a federal deduction, it's a state deduction. So let's say that you put in $10,000, your state tax is 5%. Well, then that means that you're gonna get a $500 tax savings by putting in $10,000. Not incredibly impactful, but it still is really beneficial. But on top of that, the money that you put in grows tax deferred, and then that money can be used tax-free on education costs, room and board, books, etc. So deduction on one side in some states, tax-free growth, tax-free use on college. So what happens if you don't use it on college? Well, if you don't use it on college, then there's a 10% penalty and you pay income taxes on it. So yes, that wouldn't really be ideal, but one of the best parts about 529 plans are that you can change beneficiaries. So let's say your first kid goes to college, you have leftover funds, you can then give it to the second kid or the third kid or even save it for grandkids. But know that you can't pay from the same 529 plan for multiple kids going to school at the same time. So that's why a lot of times it does make sense to make multiple 529 plans. On top of that, there are some states that's even better. So I live in Indiana. In Indiana, you actually get a 20% tax credit up to $7,500. So if you put $7,500 in, you get $1,500 back on your taxes. This is incredibly impactful. So what about for people who live in states where there's no deduction? Well, if you live in a state when there is no deduction, it doesn't mean it's not advantageous because again, you still get the tax-free growth and the tax-free use, and that really is the big benefit when you're investing for 10, 15, even 20 years. The less time that you're investing, the less beneficial that this account becomes. So that's 529 plans. Now let's go into the second most common one. That's an UTMA account. An UTMA account is really just a child's investment account. So for adults, we have brokerage accounts or taxable accounts or whatever you want to call them. What they are for kids is called an UTMA or an UGMA account. Really all that means is that when you put money in, you're giving it to that child. So let's say you put $5,000 in, that is given to them, you cannot take it back. That's one downside. The other downside is that when they turn 18 or 21 or whatever age that state requires, all of those fully become them and they can choose how to use those funds at that time. But just like a brokerage account, you can put as much money in, you can invest as much as you want. They can sell and pay capital gains taxes and use it on college. But really that downside is that you have to give it to them at a certain age. Number three is just a brokerage account in your name. So if you said, hey, I don't want to use a 529, or hey, I don't want to put all in a 529 because what if I end up having way too much for college? Well, then you could combine it with a brokerage account in your name. You could just have that be part of your regular one, or you can create a separate one and say, hey, my goal is to get $100,000 in here for college. So that means I need to save this amount per year if I get this growth rate, and then you can kind of monitor it from there and say, hey, I'm ahead or I'm behind and I need to add more. But the nice thing about this account is if you don't have to give it to them at 18 or 21, if you need those funds, you can use them. If they don't go to college, you can just keep it, or you can end up gifting it to them if you really want to. The brokerage account is a really great option. A lot of times I see clients pairing a brokerage account in a 529. And the one thing that I really do love about still using a 529 is they made a new rule last year where leftover funds can be converted to Roth IRAs tax-free for that beneficiary if the account has been open for 15 years. So if you have 35,000 left over, you could put 7,000 in this year, 7,000 in next year for the first 5 years after your kid goes to college, and you could help fund that Roth IRA. Super, super impactful because now they're going to be able to pay off student loans. They're going to be able to save for a house. They're going to be able to put more in their 401k while you are able to fund their Roth. So those are three of the most common. There's a few other ways that you can do this. One of them is through a Roth IRA. So one of the uses that you could use with a Roth IRA is paying for educational expenses. I don't love this idea because that's one of your tax-free accounts. You only can really get $7,000 a year into it. So I like to see that account grow tax-free for as long as possible. But if college is the big goal and you really want to help, that is another option that you could use. Another one that people don't think about is really just cash flowing college. Maybe you're paying for private school for kids. Maybe just right now it's a little bit harder to save as much as you want. You want to save for your retirement. Well, when your kids go to college, you can help cash flow the $20,000, $30,000, or $40,000 a year if you have the ability to do it. That totally works. Another one is you could have them take on student loans, and you could either pay all of the student loan payments or help pay part. So let's say they take on $100,000 of loans, they're gonna have $700 a month of loan payments. You could say, hey, I'm gonna pay all $700 of that for you because we weren't able to save, or hey, you pay 50%, we pay 50%, and that's our gift to helping you. So that's another really great option. At the end of the day, those are the main ones that I really look at and think are good for people to use. The other one is you could just say, hey, I don't really want to save for my kids' college. Like that is really on them. But at the end of the day, it's 529, UTMA, taxable brokerage account in your own name. You could potentially use your own Roth IRA or your spouse's, and then you could cash flow it or help pay the student loans. At the end of the day, this really comes down to what's important to you, how much do you want to save, but know that college is growing quickly. So if college costs $30,000 a year right now for the school you want to save for, you're going to need to factor in inflation down the line, because $30,000 in 20 years is going to be a lot different based on college growing at 3 to 5% per year. But at the end of the day, plan for this, prepare for it, and figure out the best route for you and your family. But remember, you can't borrow for retirement, but you can borrow for student loans. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and go subscribe to my channel for more personal finance content. And as always, please leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I promise to get back to every single one of them. We'll see you back next week.